All right, so you're just in time for another eBay. Well, no, not eBay. Etsy unboxing. Let's see what the hell I got now. So I saw this item on actually Etsy, not eBay, and it was 5 items in one lot for $80. Well, actually, it was 4 items in one lot for $80, and I didn't want the other things. I only wanted two out of the four, and the lady wanted $80 for the lot of the items, and the other items I didn't want was a little perfume bottle from the 1920s. I don't know, it just really didn't have much value to it. It's quite common to find those. And the other item was a aluminum powder puff box, probably from the 30s or 40s. It had a portrait of Marie Antoinette on the top of it and a music box inside of it. And you might say, oh my God, why did you turn that up? Well, I wanted to get the bill down. So I wanted the two most important items out of the lot. To try to get her to sell me two of those items instead of four. So I contacted her and I said, hey, I like this item and this item. Would you take $40 for those items? And she said yes. And then she canceled the listing on Etsy. She replaced a new ad up with the two items, gave them to me for 40 bucks. So what did I get? Now, her pictures weren't very good, and I'm hoping the one item is a real winner. And I'll tell you why in a second, which I doubt. I highly doubt. I think it's probably going to be faux meaning fake, not real. And that would be bone or ivory. I was hoping it was bone or ivory, but it's most likely ivorine or French ivory, otherwise known as celluloid. And yeah, chances of it being real bone or ivory is slim to none, but you take a chance. The other item is the item I wanted the most. All right, so we got a bill. Let's get that away. I don't want you crack maniacs seeing my address and showing up to my front doorstep. So she really packed it very well, actually. I give her a lot of credit for that. And, okay. Oh, all right, so it appears that she put them in little jewelry boxes. That's a nice touch. And that item that I thought was ivory or bone or most likely celluloid is actually much smaller than I thought it was if it fits in this little jewelry box. Interesting. All right. So, we have to aim the camera, don't we? Okay, so now we have the camera in the correct position to check this out. And all right, so this item is heavier than this item. So I'm thinking this one might be the one I thought was bone. Oh, well, hoping it was bone or ivory. And I'm going to look at it before. Okay, no, it's not. Okay, it's the other item. All right, let's see. Okay, wow. This is actually much more smaller than I thought. I thought it was going to be like maybe that big. But you can see it's this big. But actually, it's even cuter than I thought. So let's get a close-up and take a look at it. All right, so you see here, if we can get this glare away. Let me just move my camera a second and try to get rid of this glare. Okay, so if you look, you see a portrait of a lady. And, okay, hold on. We'll try to really study this in close detail. Let's zoom in. Okay, so it's a portrait on some kind of material. It could be ivory or it could be celluloid of a French-style lady. And these little miniature portraits are highly collectible. It doesn't matter if it's on porcelain, glass, or bone or ivory or any other type of material. They're highly collectible. Now, I'm trying to see if this is bone. There's a way you could tell. Oh, wait a minute. There's cross-hatching here. This is also known as Schrager lines. Do you see those crisscrosses going throughout this piece? If it was regular celluloid, you would see straight lines, completely straight, going through the piece and in a very uniform way. I'll show you. Hold on. Okay, so basically, it's very hard to tell, but there's a few telltale signs. You can get a black light, which is like a purple black light. You can take it into a dark area and light it on. If the item turns white, it's most likely bone or ivory. If it glows like a different color, let's actually check it out. Let's see. Or it could be Bakelite. Now this is celluloid and it's very thin and lightweight. You can also tell by the touch. If you place it on your skin, if it's warm, it's most likely celluloid or fake ivory or fake bone. If it's cool to the touch, it's actually most likely bone or ivory. Schrager lines. Okay, so there's those lines I just showed you. It says bone will not have Schrager lines, but will have black or brown pores. The brown or black is from the accumulation of dirt. If you press a hot needle to it, it may smoke and will smell a bone. Well, I'm not going to do that. But here we go. Ivory. Ivory is heavy and cold to the touch when you put it to your cheek. It will usually have Schrager lines. These lines may be crisscross hatching or in circular rings. If you do the so-called hot needle test and press the tip of the hot needle to the ivory surface, it will not press in and may slightly smell of bone. I am not going to test that out. But mine has Schrager lines, so it might be genuine ivory. It says, genuine ivory has been a challenge to identify, as similar looking items have been made out of bone, vintage plastic, ceramics, and nuts. And the following is a quick way to tell. Now, Schrager lines is very, very good. Okay, so celluloid, or that fake ivory or elephant tusk, was invented in 1868. It's been used for quite a long time, and a lot of things were made out of faux or fake celluloid, ivorine. They had different names for it, or bakelite type of materials. And because there was some kind of like thing going on with the environment. Ivory and elephant tusks and elephants were killed for their ivory to make these items. And so they started to crack down on it, and they needed an alternative, which was the celluloid. All right, so you can recognize it again with the needle test. Not doing that. We don't need anything to melt. And yeah, there was lots of laws banning the sales of whale ivories as well. Okay, so here we go. Using a black light. It says it saves time by ruling out artificial materials. Virtually all plastics and resins fluoresce blue or blue/white under long-wave black light, regardless of their surface color in ordinary light. Genuine ivory usually fluoresces white, but this can vary depending on whether the ivory has patina. Very interesting. Most natural old patinas fluoresce dull yellow or brown. Okay, be very suspicious of any brightly colored fluorescent, such as yellow, as this indicates artificial aging in dung, urine, or animal fats. Yuck. Use black lights as your first test. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, we are in the dark, officially. And wait, let me get the lid. I'm going to turn it over. I don't want to damage the portrait. And let's get our black light out. And it's fluorescing a little yellow, but also we see white. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so if it was fake, it would fluoresce blue. And we don't see blue here at all, boys and girls. So let's check this out. Okay, you can see the Schrager lines in the interior of the lid. You can also see, look at the lines. Do you see those lines in the material? Interesting. All right, let's look at this again. I'm going to hold the light high up above it. And it looks like it's fluorescent white with a little bit of yellow. Let's move it. There we go. Interesting. Okay, so this may be the answer to our question. Again, genuine ivory usually fluoresces white, but this can vary depending on whether the ivory has patina. Most natural old patinas fluoresce dull yellow or brown. Be very suspicious of any brightly colored fluorescence. Okay, so far, that's one more clue that this could be real ivory. Okay, so very genuine, very genuine. Genuine ivory is formed by living, growing tissue. Their directions and forms of growth, you'll see rings, like almost like a tree, are unique to each ivory producing species. These unique grain structures have so far been impossible to duplicate in artificial substances like plastics and resins. Generally, grain always runs along dimension of the piece of authentic worked ivory. Now, attempts to put grain in artificial ivory go back over 100 years. Celluloid, one of the earliest plastics invented in 1868, has prominent grain. Grain in celluloid and other artificial ivory is usually easy to detect because it normally appears as nearly perfectly parallel lines with the same amount of space in between each set of parallel lines. And shows a definite repeating pattern. Grain in natural ivory is random, without any noticeable pattern. A repeating pattern with uniform, even lines is almost always a sign of man-made artificial ivory. And there we go, our Schrager lines. Schrager lines where they cross and they go in angles, like crisscross, almost like a crosshatch pattern. the presence of Schrager lines always qualifies a piece as elephant ivory. The lines are most easily seen in the bases of figures and anywhere where cuts are made at right angles to the grain. While the presence of Schrager lines can be a diagnostic, they may not always be obvious, and depending on how a piece of ivory was cut, they won't always show. It is a myth that a piece made of ivory will always have them, so the absence of Schrager lines cannot be a reliable indicator of a substance other than ivory. Interesting. So only real ivory has Schrager lines. It can't be duplicated with celluloid. Aha. Now this is what bone would look like. Now here's antique bone chips or gambling counters. In bone, you'll see the black pitting. I don't know if you can see that there, but you see like a black pitting going throughout the pieces. That's bone. So that's how you know you have bone, most likely. Here's real ivory. These are ivory poker chips. And you can see the cross-hatch lines. I'm filming my computer screen, but you see those cross-hatch lines? That's Schrager lines. Very interesting. So we have Schrager lines. Okay, now here's celluloid. And here's the difference between celluloid. Again, you see the cross-hatch of the Schrager lines and celluloid. Look how perfectly parallel the lines are to each other. You see like the same amount of space in between each one. You see that here? Perfect straight lines. Look at that. And that's how you know you have celluloid. Okay, so if this is real ivory, this is worth a heck of a lot of money. Let's get out our looking glass. And yeah, we have different magnifications. This lights up. Let's go ahead and light it up. Okay, and let's try to look in it. And, okay, All right, we see Schrager lines in the interior of the lid. Yeah, no doubt about that. That's Schrager lines. Let's check out now. I'm just going to put the light on for the smaller one over here so we can check this out. And let's go ahead and do that. If you guys can see through this thing, it will be a miracle. And I'm trying to like show you with the camera. It's not going to be very easy. Let's go ahead and try this again. And showing it to you guys through the camera is not going to happen. But then again, we have the evidence of Schrager lines. And I'm going to turn the light on that one more time. And sorry if this video is boring, but we're learning something. That's what we're doing. You see the Schrager lines? Yep. Okay, now let's check the interior of this one. And you can see the lines are actually not perfectly parallel to each other. They swirl a little bit. Let's try to let's zoom in. And I'll hold it this way because the light is just terrible. Hold on, we'll go into a better lighted area. Okay. So now let's investigate. And if you look at the lines, yeah, they're not perfectly parallel to each other. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. You can see they swirl in different directions. And let's flip it over. Okay, yeah, this is definitely not perfectly parallel. You can see it has waves in it. And you can see cross-hatching actually going this way as well. Almost like a square tic-tac-toe type of board right through here. Don't know if you can see that. And it looks like, let's check out the carving. Now there's carving on the side of this, which is really outrageous. And it's cool to the touch. I could feel it. Look at the carving on this. Wow. Okay, yeah, this is really, really, really old. Again, I'm trying to show you with better lighting, but my camera casts a shadow. And I think we have carved ivory, boys and girls. And that would make this very old, probably from the time of Napoleon's reign. Okay, so let's look at our portrait right now in better lighting. And look at that. That's very, very French. I don't know if you could see. Wow, look at that. That's really, really painted by hand. I don't know if you could see that. And yeah, this looks like it's on ivory. Yeah, look at that. Look. When I move, you see the Schrager lines going through that little ivory wafer? See that? Under the glass? All right, so look at this. We have a really fancy, almost like those famous paintings made in the 1700s by, I think, Watteau and some of those other famous painters of the time. Wow. Okay. Yeah, this is hand painted, boys and girls. I think I hit a major, major score on this. So the seller said that this was a rouge pot from the 1920s. I don't think it's a rouge pot because look at the size of it. Don't know if you could see, but if you look at the size of it, it's very petite and very small. I'm going to guess this is a snuff box. And an ivory snuff box, hand carved, with a porcelain, well, not porcelain, but it looks to be ivory wafer portrait. Look at that. Look at the carving on this piece. This is absolutely outrageous. Now, if this was celluloid, you could probably get about $100 for something like this because it has a hand painted portrait. Now, what is it worth since it's ivory? Aha. And how old is it? And then we'll check out the second item, which now I wanted more than this one. And now this one I'm in absolute love with. And again, look at this carve work. I mean, that is just absolutely stunning and gorgeous. Let's check this out. Oh my God. This was a major, major score. Now here's an example of an ivory portrait box, and they had all different kinds of portraits. Most of them made after French noble women. They would make like Marie Antoinette, Madame Pompadour, and so forth. This one says style Louis XVI, 480. It's 480 pounds sterling, which in U.S. money would be 500 and something dollars. And yes, look at that. That is very similar to our style, except for ours is more elaborate with the carvings going on the side. Very, very interesting. Now here's a celluloid version of a little box, and that one being sold for $120. Now you can see how material means everything to value. You know, a lot of these bone or whalebone or elephant tusk little miniature boxes were a lot of them were Chinese. It wasn't only just French. And here's, you can see the carving going out throughout this one. This is Cantonese. And here's the bottom of it. Really quite beautiful. It's giving us a slideshow. And look at the price. 800 euros. In US dollars, we would have to pay more. And there you go. Look at the side of that. That's a Cantonese one. I highly doubt that ours is Chinese because of the portrait is very French. Now here's a ivory miniature box being sold. It was on sale for $671, down from $895. But you see this beautiful, beautiful ivory portrait box. And we have one of the French noble ladies. And you could see, look at that. There we go. These are very tiny little boxes. So here is an early 19th century bone carved snuff box, and you can see the difference between bone. You get more of a brownish pitting throughout it, but this is all carved, very similar to my type of carvings with the acanthus style design. Okay, so I'm going to guess that mine is from the Napoleon III era, which was from the 1850s to the 1870s. Now here's one being sold for $595. It was a French souvenir box, meaning when someone went on the grand tour of their trip to France and all over Europe, they would bring back something from the grand tour. So this would be a grand tour type of souvenir that was brought back. And here we go. We have a portrait in the center. Very, very cool, very unique, being sold for $595. And here's another one. And this one is carved ivory. And I'm going to probably pronounce it wrong, but this style of raised carving, like right here, like you see the medallion in the center, would be called diape or diep or dipe. Not that, like, I'm gonna get that wrong because it's French, but this one being sold, and it's very tiny, $995. This one being from the 1700s. Really interesting. And on both sides of the box there was a design, really quite interesting. Very, very tiny, as you can see, 2.5-inch diameter by 1.25 high. You see, it could be a snuff or patch box. And here's another one being dated from the 1700s, being sold for $595. Very tiny, as you can see there, with a really interesting carving going around it. Really nice, high raised relief. Let's check it out. And wow, look at that. That is something else. And on the other side, we have a whole other design. And so mine could actually be earlier than Napoleon III. And so again, here's my piece. And this is just something else. I mean, absolutely spectacular. You can see, yeah, it's even the same color as the one in the listing. Now, generally, celluloid has more of a different color. It's not exact to ivory, but we're checking this out. And yes, ivory has that yellowish cast to it. So this one piece here that I basically got for $20, because for the two pieces it was $40, I wouldn't sell for less than $595. The highest I would probably estimate it at is at about $700 to $800. Why? Because we have this beautiful portrait that was hand painted. It's French. Anything French is exquisite. And look at this carving going around the entire piece. You don't see carving like this. Most of them are flat on all sides. But look at the carving on this. Let's get a close-up. I mean, this is absolutely exquisite. We got flowers. We got these curly cues. We got, let's check it out. Somebody sat here and carved this out and spent an enormous amount of time doing so. And so, yep, between, I'm going to say about $595 to over $750, without a doubt. Especially since this amount of carving was done by hand. This is just stunning. A really great score for 20 bucks. All right, next, we're going to go to the next object. And now I'm not a big fan of it anymore after seeing this one. So you can see the size of this sucker on the left compared to our little snuff or patch box. Look at the size of it. It's absolutely enormous. And this is what I really wanted. I wanted this brooch because of the size. Generally, this is really, really outrageous to see them this size. Okay, so look how big this is with my hand as I'm trying to like change the lighting to make this a little better. But compared to the size of my hand, this thing is enormous. And what the hell is it? Well, it's a brooch. I at first thought it was a portrait miniature. And we see that it has a metal frame going around it, but it's a brooch. And that makes it even more special because not only is it a miniature work of art, it also can be worn. But look at the size of this. I mean, this thing is outrageous. Let's check out the hinge. I'm going to try to get a date on it. Okay, it's an actual early round hinge. Yeah, that's an early round hinge. It was not mass produced. It's handmade. You can see, by the way, it's mounted onto the frame. We do not have a C clasp. A C clasp or a clasp shaped like the letter C would indicate that it was like from the Victorian era. Let's actually check it out. Okay, this is a very early safety clasp. This is probably circa, I'm going to say 1890s to about 1900. Wow. Now, who is this person? Now, this is something I spent 4 hours investigating. What the hell is this? Was this a famous actress of the day? Was it, I don't know, a famous woman in history? And then I found out what it was. So I'm going to show you guys what this is and who it is of. But again, look at the size of this. This is absolutely phenomenal. $20. Now, what would something like this be worth? Well, with the size, this thing is enormous. One of these brooches would be worth between $500 to $700, especially since it's hand painted on porcelain. People collect hand painted miniature portraits on porcelain, and so now this has a double collectible value since it's a miniature portrait on porcelain and it's also antique jewelry. So in 1869, a famous artist by the name of Gustav Richter made a painting called The Egyptian Woman. So that was in 1869. His name was Carl Gustav Richter, and he was from Berlin from 1823, and he died in 1884, was a German painter, student of Edward Holbein at the Academy of Arts in Berlin. He painted decorative frescoes for the Neues Museum. In 1856, he created for Frederick William the fourth of Prussia, and the resurrection of Jairus, his daughter, a painting that aroused great enthusiasm at the exhibition. And in 1866, he married Giacomo Meyerbeer's daughter, Cornelie Meyerbeer, famous artist. Okay, and apparently he studied at the Academy of Arts in Berlin. And then, he actually studied in Paris as well. Very interesting. And here is our painting. Okay, so this is a Gustav Richter, or what you call an after Gustav Richter. So these pieces were made after famous artists' pieces. And you can see we have the same exact lady. We got the same vest, the same necklace, the same headdress. Yup, that's what we have. We have Gustav Richter. So what did this copy miniature portrait in velvet and metal or bronze frame sell for? It recently sold for $894, and it's a tiny little miniature with a big frame going around it. Okay, so what did my little Etsy purchase actually in value ends up being worth now? Okay, between $1,000 and $1,500 for a $40 purchase. Yep. So this was a major, major, major score. They're out there, very hard to find. I'm going to tell you that much right now. You can't just go out on Etsy and find these things every single day, or on eBay, or on any kind of antique website or auction site or thrift store. This does not happen every single day. This is hard work and dedication, and I'm not even kidding you, at least 8 to 10 hours of searching the whole entire internet and scouring. You don't just get this lucky generally without doing the work. You have to do the work, take risks. I assumed that this was going to be celluloid, and for $40, it wouldn't have been upsetting if this was celluloid, because I would have been just happy enough to get this brooch that the lady thought was from the 1940s. She had no clue that this was old or antique. And so I took a chance, and $40, I figured for $40, it's like 2 pizza pies in New York. Yeah, that's how expensive pizza has gotten. And if worse comes to worse, I get the value of $40 for these 2 items. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Yep, $1,000 to $1,500 for a $40 purchase. Awesome. You can't even make that type of money going to the casino. All right, guys, well, I'm not going to sell it. So there you go. Thanks for watching. See you guys all soon, and hope you learned something. If you learned about how to tell between celluloid, ivory, and bone, let me know in the comments below. And if you learned about the enormous amount of work that it took me to figure out who this woman was, hours, at least 4, I'm not kidding you, at least a minimum of 4 hours to try to identify this lady on the brooch, and you appreciate the hard work I put into that, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. See you guys all soon, and so long.